You have queued up the Roulette Tapes, a program of adventurous music and conversation recorded at the New York City Concert Hall, Roulette. You can hear thousands of concert recordings from Roulette's past and present and find news of upcoming events celebrating innovation and imagination at roulette.org. Aren't you curious?
Welcome to another episode of the Roulette Tapes. I'm Susan James. I'll be your host for this edition. Today we feature the work of American jazz pianist and multi-instrumentalist Cooper Moore. He's been a fixture in the world of free jazz and improvisation for decades, and I had a chance to sit down with Cooper Moore to discuss his history as an artist and his involvement with Roulette.
My name is Cooper Moore, and that's a name that I gave to myself. My birth name is Gene Ashton, and I was born in Northern Virginia, in a rural town in Northern Virginia. And Cooper Moore, I took that name because I wasn't a decent person to women as a younger man. And Cooper and Moore were my grandmother's names, Granny Cooper and Granny Moore. And I figured that if I kept them with me, I couldn't be bad, because you can't be bad with your grandmother. And I started playing piano when I was about 8 years old. I was 8 years old. And I was pretty much drafted by some of the black leaders in town because they didn't have any young musicians who were coming up. So I ended up playing in the schools, all the black churches. I would play programs that people wanted me to play during the week. So I played a lot of music as a child. And then I went off to Catholic University when I finished high school. And then after Catholic University, I went to Berklee School of Music for about a semester. And then I moved, stayed in Boston, then moved to New York and started this life that I'm leading now. It started because my mother died when I was 15 years old. And I was crazy about math and science. I was also crazy about music. But the thing that got me through my mother's passing and through my mourning time was music. I would go into the back room and play piano or listen to music. I also went out into the backyard or the field, and I had an 8-foot telescope, and I would look at the stars. But that didn't do it the way music did it. So that's what gave me the sense that music was a higher value for me. And when I was 12 years old, I heard Monk, I heard Miles, I heard Mingus, I heard these musicians that I would later, as a young adult, meet. Some of the people I heard as a teenager I ended up playing with. So when I met these people, they pretty much looked at me. You know, these are guys that look at you and they give you a sign. They give you a sign of, okay, come on in the back, come on in the green room, we'll talk, or hang around till after the gig and we'll talk. And these people did that, and I realized that these were my people when I was about 12, 13 years old. You know, I heard them, and then when I was a late teen, I heard them and met them, you know, in clubs and concerts. They were the people, they had it. They had something that the black people where I lived did not have. I understand it now. They were people who traveled the world. And the world educates you in a very different way. Travel educates you in a very different way, not like school. You know, you have a sense about you. And these people had a sense about them that was attractive. I mean, I tell people that if you ever heard or saw Miles Davis on stage, I mean, I'm a heterosexual, but when you saw Miles, I mean, he was full of sexuality. It was like, whoa, you know, and even we men. So these were powerful people, and I wanted to be like them.
When did you first start performing live? What year was that?
I was in church. I was 8 years old. You know, I started taking piano lessons when I was about 2 months after I had my 8th birthday. That was in October 1954. The following April, I was performing in church for the Easter program, and they paid me $8. I mean, they paid me money, which was more money than my older brothers were making all week. This was meaningful. This was something that I could sit and play music and enjoy myself, and people would give me money. That was unheard of, because you understand that African-American black folks, where I lived in the South, we were mostly laborers. My mother worked as a maid or cleaned people's houses or cooked for them. There were no doctors and lawyers. The highest folk in our community were teachers and preachers. So to be a musician, I was very special, and the community made me feel special. I was special in a way I didn't understand then. But I understand now. I'm a musician, and being a musician is a life of service, and that's very special. And I learned it from the time I was 8 years old.
Later, as an adult, you really found your community. You are an integral part of the new music community here in New York City. Tell me about finding those people.
Well, I found them early on. I pretty much found them early on when I was, again, a teenager and a freshman at Catholic University. And any time that an ESP recording would come out, people would get on the phone. Usually men, they were all guys, get on the phone. We'd call each other that there was a new shipment in, and we'd go down. There was only one store that sold the recordings, and we'd go down and we'd buy the recordings. And we didn't each have enough money to buy all of them, but we each had enough money to buy one or two, and then we would go from each other's houses or apartments to listen to the music that had come in. So early on, I heard Giuseppe Logan, I heard Albert Ayler, I heard Bill Dixon, Train, of course, we heard, but these other people, Ornette, I heard, whoa. I mean, that was a real lesson. So early on, I heard these people. And then in 1966, I was a sophomore at Catholic University, and I came to New York City that summer. And I met many of those people. I met Bill Dixon. I met Giuseppe. I met Burton Green. I met these people who were doing it, and they took me under their wings. I couldn't play even. I couldn't even play. But they say, hey, come on with us. And so we'd hang out, and they would talk and they would play. They'd take me to the clubs and the concerts. So I met them early on. And then later on, when I was at the Berklee School of Music, I met David S. Ware, tenor player, who was my love, my heart, my soulmate. I tell people, I'm heterosexual, but, I love David more than I've loved any woman, because it was about the spirit. It was about soulful feelings that he could produce and that we could create together, And it happens to be much more, it's been much more work with my women lovers. It wasn't so much work in playing with David, and Mark Edwards, who was part of the trio of Apogee that formed in Boston and then moved into New York. It was, we all understood the language. We all understood the height that we had to go. We all understood our place inside the music, even inside the music community, even though we weren't actively involved, but we knew what our future was going to be. We knew our purpose. We knew how hard we had to work to do the stuff that we had to do, because we had people like Sonny Rollins and Mingus and Train, and we had these people in front of us who had done the work. And they had done the work without grants from foundations. They had done the work from the money that they received from the door, from black folks mostly, in black communities and black establishments. So that's the strength that we had. We knew that this music, because if you ever watch Amateur Night at the Apollo, black folks don't put up with if it's not happening, they'll boo you off the stage. So we were able to stay around. But now there are very few black folks in the audience when we play now. Very few. But we still, for me, when I play, I think that I'm in the Baptist church that I grew up in. That's where I am. I'm not thinking about selling a record or being in the downbeat pole. I'm thinking about my job here is to service this congregation who've come out to participate in elevating selves.
Tell me about the instruments that you use, starting with piano and branching out into the other instruments that you've added.
Yeah. So piano was the first instrument. The flute, I became a flute player when I was 15 years old. I bought my sister's flute for $5. And then when I graduated from high school, a friend and mentor and patron gave me a flute for a gift, and I became a flute major my freshman year at college. Later on, I became a piano major. After I left Boston and came to New York, I lived on 501 Canal Street with David S. Ware and Alan Brothman and Jimmy Hops, a lot of different musicians. Then I started building instruments. And the first instrument I built was an ashimba, and was named by an artist who lived across the street from Canal Street named Lonnie Young. He said, it's an Ashton marimba, an ashimba. So the materials from that instrument came from, it was a bundle of wood that I found on the corner of Green Street and Canal. And that was the first instrument. That's 1974. After I built that instrument, I built a harp. I built a zither. I built lots of different instruments, you know. And Jimmy Hopps, a drummer who was playing with Stanley Cowell and Cecil McBee, and also Pharoah Sanders, lived with us. And he said, this is in August 1974, he said, bring all the instruments over to Green Street. And there was a recording studio there. And when I got there, he had some of the best musicians in New York, and he handed out the instruments to all these musicians, the best jazz players, you know, and they all played, and we recorded. And when I got back to the apartment, I said, what was that? He said, that was your session. I said, well, who's going to pay for it? I don't have any money. So he got on the phone and he called up Roberta Flack. And Roberta had a bunch of hits out back in the 70s, and she sent a check and paid for my first session.
Let's talk about collaborations. What have you been working on in the last year or so?
Well, I have some ongoing collaborations with people. I'm working with Stephen Gauci. Gauci is a tenor player, and we've been doing a lot of stuff in New York, about 3 recordings and concerts. That's tenor and piano. Sometimes I play the instruments. I've been working with William Parker for 30 years, 35 years. And we met in 1973 for the first time, down in the East Village. So I play in a number of his different groups. I'm working with a trio that I lead called Digital Primitives. That's with Chad Taylor on drums, and I play all my different instruments. And then there's Asif Sahar, who's from Tel Aviv, who does all the bookings and does the business. And he plays tenor and bass clarinet. And then there's a new trio that I've been playing with Michael T.A. Thompson on drums and Ken Filiano on bass, and that's a piano trio. Then there's Black Host, that's Gerald Cleaver's band. So that's a wonderful band. Everybody in that band is a leader. Pascal Nigenkemper, there's Brandon Seabrook, there's Gerald, of course, and there's myself playing piano, and Darius Jones on alto. And the newest person that I've been playing with and that we have concerts set up in the future is with Francisco Mella. Well, Francisco spent about 10 years playing with McCoy Tyner, and he's been playing with Joe Lovano and Gary Bartz, but he wants to play free. So we've been rehearsing, and we have a few gigs coming up in the next 2 or 3 months.
Next, you'll hear a sample of Cooper Moore's multi-instrumental work in the trio Triptych Myth with Tom Abbs and Chad Taylor, recorded at Roulette in March of 2005. far back does your history with roulette go, and what does roulette mean to you?
Well, first, Roulette is the best piano in New York for me. It's the best piano. The Stone has a good piano, but Roulette has a better piano. it rings. I don't know who tunes it. It's voiced real well. It sings. When you sit at it, it plays. You don't have to work as hard as you have to work on some other pianos. But I go back with Roulette when Roulette was down in Tribeca. And I guess the first time I was there was right in the mid-90s, 1990s. Did a performance and recording with William Parker there. And then I did a recording with Susie Ibarra there. I did a recording with my trio, Triptych Myth there. And I think, then I did recording with Steve Swell there that had Jamil Mundak playing alto, and I think Kevin Norton playing drums, and Butch Morris's brother, Wilbur, was playing bass. Yeah. And then I played at the Roulette on Green Street when they moved from Tribeca. And then I've played at here in Brooklyn a number of times. You know, I've done solo, I've done my band, I've done with other people. So I don't know the history of Roulette. I just know that the piano, the sound in the room always was good, and never had a problem.
The Roulette Tapes is a production of Roulette Intermedium. This project is supported in part by an award from the National Endowment for the Arts. Our executive producer is David Weinstein, co-producer is Susan James, and this episode of the Roulette Tapes was recorded and edited in the studios of Brick in Brooklyn, New York.
You have been listening to the Roulette Tapes, a program of adventurous music and conversation. This series is produced by Roulette Intermedium. You can find thousands of concert recordings from Roulette's archives and news of upcoming events at roulette.org.